You have three options to build $1 million legacy: A, B, or C, and these are all real evidence-based ways to do it, not some new crypto crap coin or anything like that. So I'm going to show you these different options, and then afterwards, as a bonus, I'm also going to show you, no matter what your current situation is, how to just do things a little bit faster. All right, here we go. Option A, this is my undeniable evidence to you that building $1 million legacy, it's not really some mystical achievement. It's actually just, it's a pit stop for you to be able to do even more in the future. It's to go from 1 million to 2 to 5 to 10 million later. And if you just do this one thing and nothing else ever again, $1 million is, it's undeniable. Here's how it works. If you take $1,000 and put it into the proper account that grows and compounds at 10%, which is what the S&P 500 does, that $1,000 you just put somewhere and never touched again will be $1 million in about 69 years. And to be honest, you're probably never going to enjoy most of that for yourself, but I need you to understand how important that really is, that you have just created $1 million legacy from just $1,000. And a man worth multiple trillions of dollars put it this way. In Proverbs 13:22, he said, "Good people leave an inheritance to their children's children, but the sinner's wealth passes to the godly." And if you don't want to take the man worth multi-trillions of dollars, if you don't want to take his word, I would encourage you, but I can't force you. There's also this. An ancient Greek proverb also says, "A society grows great when old men plant trees whose shade they know they shall never sit in." So while putting aside $1,000 now may feel insignificant, the numbers would suggest otherwise, and I would argue that you almost even have some kind of moral obligation to do something. Because remember, this is just a pit stop for you. If you put $1,000 away now, in 69 years, it'll be $1 million. But in about 7 years, that $1 million will grow into $2 million. Okay, your next option, option B, is to save your way to $1 million. And we're going to keep using $1,000 as your investment just to remain consistent. But unlike option A, we can't just save away $1,000 in cash and expect it to grow to $1 million in 69 years. In fact, it's not going to grow at all unless you add to it. If you save $1,000 every single month, where it took 69 years for your investment to grow to $1 million, it's going to take 1,000 months for you to save $1,000 into $1 million. That's about 83 years. Now, obviously, again, this is not ideal, but this is important. There's pros and cons to everything. The pros is that you're building up good habits to be able to invest for the future. If you're not able to invest now, being able to save now is still good and it's worth something. The other pro is that under normal circumstances, this is 100% safe. If you just save cash into a vault, you have complete control over it. But again, under normal circumstances, somebody can rob you, or I mean, banks do fail. That happens, and yeah, they might be FDIC insured, but what does that really mean, honestly? But the cons is that while it is safe under normal circumstances, your cash is actually becoming less and less valuable over time. This, of course, is due to inflation. I feel like we all hear about inflation all the time, especially now, but I don't know how many of us actually understand how dangerous it actually is. If inflation gets out of control, which seems to happen pretty often now, there is a healthy rate of inflation that needs to happen, but if it gets out of control, it will continually chip away at your ability to afford the cost of living. That's what inflation is. And to give you an example, if we were going to explain that to a 5-year-old, let's say $1,000 now buys you 500 apples, but with inflation, $1,000 in 10 years might only be able to buy you about 300 apples. Your cash becomes less and less valuable because there is more of the same exact thing somewhere else. Gold is only valuable because we cannot just create it out of thin air. There is a limited source of it, so it is always valuable. Cash is not going to be valuable if they can just print more and more of it. But again, let's remember those pros. You should be saving money because it's building your habits, and your best option is not actually to pick option A or to pick option B, one or the other. Your best option is to actually combine them both. You want to combine the principles of option A with the habits of option B. Because when you apply the consistency of your habits to these principles, you start to see the exponential growth come faster and faster and faster because of what's known as the rule of 72. If you take anything away from this video, take this rule away, because now you know exactly how well your money is working. The rule of 72 says if you divide 72 by any rate of return as a whole number, you will now know how soon your money will double and when it will double next time. So for example, if you pick only option B, you might as well save your money into something like a high yield savings account. This is going to give you about 4% rate of return. So if we want to use the rule of 72, what we now know is that you save $1,000 into a high yield savings account at 4%, 72 divided by 4 equals 18. So you now know your money is going to double in about 18 years, and then 18 years after that, it will double again. But for example, if we take the S&P 500 or anything else that grows at 10%, 72 divided by 10 is 7.2 years. And this is why you saw in the beginning to go from 1,000 to a million took so long, but to go from a million to 2 million actually only took about 7 years. I was using the rule of 72. Now, if we look at it like this, if you are saving $1,000 into your investments, instead of 83 or 69 years, you're actually going to hit $1 million in about 23 years. Where most people are going to fall short, though, is they immediately hear that $1,000 a month or even just $250 a month, they hear that and they immediately associate this investment as if it's another bill that they have to pay. And so they just come to the conclusion that, well, I have to pay all my other bills first. I can't afford to invest $1,000 a month or 200 whatever, $100 a month. But here's the biggest issue. When you say I can't afford it or I can't afford to invest anything, what you're really saying is I can afford to pay everybody else except for myself. As you start to build the habits now, the first person you should be paying is not everybody else, it should be you. And that is what option C is all about, to combine these two and make sure to pay yourself first. But now, how do we do things a little bit faster? Because I understand you can't save what you don't have. So if you literally are living bare bones and you still have nothing left over each month, I'm going to explain to you now just how to do things a little bit faster. And your quick answer is to increase your cash flow. There are very few financial problems that you cannot fix with a little bit more money. What you need to do is understand this thing called the cash flow quadrants. And really all it is each of these 4 squares represents one way to make money. There are only 4, and you need to figure out where you are in these squares. And then you need to understand the psychology of why you're there and where you would rather be. And by the way, I did not create this concept by myself. It was popularized by the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. So if you want a more in-depth answer to how to use these quadrants, go read that book, Rich Dad Poor Dad. But the way it works is that typically what happens is people start on the left side of this quadrant, whether they are employees or they are self-employed. But where they really want to be, if you're looking for time and freedom and growth, is on the right side of the quadrant. So if we break this down, as an employee, this is where you have a job. There is nothing wrong with having a job. Let me make that clear. There is nothing wrong with having a job. But the psychology behind it is that when people go and get a job, whether they like it or not, what they're looking for is a sense of security and stability. They know as long as they show up, they will get paid. However, my argument is that if you are looking for security, why would you look for security in somebody else's hands? If somebody else is controlling your income and your schedule, how secure is that really? Because if you have to quit your job, they expect you to put a 2 weeks notice in, right? Well, if they want to fire you, if they have to lay you off, they can let you know the next day and you got to be out of there. So you may enjoy your job, but if you're looking for security, that's the psychology behind it. You need to start employing some of these other squares. And the second one, if we move down, is self-employed. This is where most people move when they figure out they don't want to work for somebody else for the rest of their lives. However, I want to point out that instead of having a job, the self-employed person, what they do now is they own a job, because just like the employee, they're still trading time for money. So examples of this is like a real estate agent. If you are a real estate agent, you cannot just stop showing houses, holding open houses, and taking people on tours if you want to keep making money. This is where the right side of the quadrant comes in. People on the left are looking for stability, but people on the right are looking for growth. The only thing with the right side is that you are now looking for growth, but you have to take on a little bit of extra risk. So as a business owner, this is where you don't own a job, you don't have a job. What you own is a system. To give you an example that I just used, instead of being the real estate agent, you would be the real estate broker. So you are the one that set up the brokerage for other agents to use, and then you collect override fees instead of going out and actually selling the houses for yourself. Or a more common example is McDonald's. The only person you're never going to see in the McDonald's is probably the owner. The owner sets up the system and takes on all the risk associated with that system. And now what they can do is they can have a 16-year-old come into the kitchen, train him for 2 days, and it will still be a profitable business. But the owner is not actually the one cooking the burgers. Now, the fourth one is being the investor. This is where you get your money to work for you. We just talked about this with options A, B, and C. People don't usually start here because it takes money to make money here, but this is probably the truest form of passive income. And I don't believe true passive income exists, but this is the truest form of it because you're putting your money somewhere to now work for you. But you did have to put in active work in order to gain that initial investment, right? So now your job is to figure out exactly which one of these squares you are in and then figure out where you want to go. If you want to make more money on the left side, your only options are to increase your hours that you are working or to just get a better or second job. Those are your options. If you want to make more money on the right side, what you need to do is create a better system or find a better system that will allow you to scale it faster so that you don't have to put in 100 hours in order to get out 100 hours. So instead of putting in 100 hours of your own time, you find 100 people to put in just 1 hour of their time. And I'm not going to give specific examples for this. That could be in another video. Let me know if you would like something like that. But this is the only way for you to increase your cash flow is by using these squares, figuring out where you are, and understanding where you want to be, how to increase it. Let me know if any of this was helpful to you. If it was, hit the subscribe button so you can see more of my videos later. But for now, I guess I'll just see you in the next video.